And I guess it's time to record a podcast, episode 25 of The Photographer. The Photographer. You think I'd learn how to say the name of the podcast by episode 25? The Photography Brothers Podcast. And we have a very special guest for all of you today. Normally, I don't reveal the name of the guest right away. But in this case, their name is going to be in the song, which is coming up right after this brief banter up top here. So we have Alexei on the show today, a good friend of mine. One could say a photography mentor of mine, if you want to use a very flattering and fancy word. And Alexei, I'm going to try to pronounce his last name, Malakhov. Is that right?
Yep.
Wow. It's historically the first time we've ever pronounced the name correctly on the podcast.
Well, you know him, so that helps.
we would hope so, right? But yeah, there's mistakes can still be made. In order to make Alexei feel a little bit more comfortable today on the podcast, I tried to get some smoked meats sent to his house, but it didn't quite work out. I didn't think that would I didn't trust them to deliver quality smoked meats, but next time we'll have some smoked fish, some haddock, whatever it is. But I did think that in honor of Alexei here on the show for episode 25, we're going to try out some new names for me and Michael, so our actual Russian names. So for Michael, and Alexei's going to help me with pronunciations, hopefully back me up on this. Mikhail, like Mikhail Gorbachev, right? Mikhail.
There is less of K and more of H.
More of a
harassment.
Yeah, Mikhail. Yeah, and then Costa is Latin for rib, so that's ribro, right?
Ribro is rib, yes. And it's Kostya. It's a soft ya at the end.
Yeah, okay. Kostya. So Mikhail Ribro, I think.
No, he said it was Kostya.
Well, no, hold on a second. Kostya is the first name, Konstantin.
Yeah.
But
so Costa means rib.
If you want to have a last name, in that case, Ribro as a rib is uncommon but not impossible last name.
Okay.
In Russia. It would actually be plausible.
Okay, all right. Good to know. And then for myself, so Jared, Russian people who I've met, my fiance is also Russian, so they'll just like shorten my name to Jaredik sometimes. Hope that checks out. And Poirier, which is like French for like a pear guy, right? Like a pear, someone who loves pears, and all his friends are pears. Grusha is the Russian word for pear, right, Alexei?
It is.
Yeah. Okay. So hopefully everybody loves our new Russian names. I am Zherdek Grusha, and we have over there Michael. What's your name? Your Russian name?
Mikhail.
Yeah.
Mikhail.
Mikhail. Yep, getting there.
It's like
Ribro. Right?
Guys, I've already forgotten, okay? Look. We'll just go.
Imagine what it's like being Russian, okay?
Yeah. I know. But here's my question for you, okay? Mike, if you just shorten it, Mike is Mike, isn't it? I mean, you're not there's not a Russian way of saying
Misha.
Okay, well, there you go, Misha. Okay.
Misha. Okay, so
Misha is a friendly version of Mikhail. Like
a friendly
Michael,
version.
What's on your passport? Mike is what friends or family call you. It's friendly and somewhat endearing.
Okay.
So there you go.
Okay, how do you pronounce that again?
Misha.
Misha. Okay.
Yep.
Beautiful.
Perfect. I can only loop this intro so many times though, so we better get into this song here. It's gonna be a lot of looping for me later, but that's okay. I'm up for it. So if you guys are ready for a little song action, if you
bring it up.
If you'll indulge me, a bit of a song for everybody today. Okay, here we go. we started recording a podcast. Michael and Jared, and we're having a blast. We found a great guest. His name's Alexei, and he's about to drop some wisdom and talk photography. The Photography Brothers. The Photography Brothers. Ow! Woo! Dear listeners, I am your photographer, Jared Grisha, and welcome to the Photography Brothers podcast. We have another great photographer over there, second wonderful photographer. What's your name, buddy?
My name is Michael. You wanted me to use the Russian. My name is Michael. Okay, Michael Costa, also known as the Growing Photographer. Hi guys, how you doing?
He means Misha Ribro, but that's fine.
Okay.
And we have on the show today as well a third amazing photographer. Who are you?
Hey, well, full name is Alexei Malakhov, but here I just go by Alex because it's easier for everyone, and I don't need to teach people pronunciation of this. And you know what? Since it's been 3 weeks since I became more Canadian than I am Russian, I might as well just stick to a localized name. Good enough for me.
3 weeks? What happened?
Well, 3 weeks ago was exactly 20 years of me living in Russia and Canada down to an hour.
Okay.
So I had a few shots of maple-flavored vodka, and because of the current lockdown rules, had to keep it at that. But once we're allowed together...
You didn't want to go with like a Canadian whiskey or something like that? That would have been too far, right?
Well, initially I was planning to throw a little bit of the party and have like half table of Canadian food and half table of specialty Russian food.
Yeah.
Well, that didn't really happen.
Yeah.
So, but I just kind of wanted to honor both cultures, both countries. I kind of have a thing. I like to cook. Not a professional chef. I just like messing around with food and then consuming it all. So,
cheaper than Uber Eats, man. It's cheaper than Uber Eats.
Almost everything is cheaper than Uber Eats, man.
Yeah. Ain't that the truth?
Yeah, soon if I can just stop my Uber Eats addiction, then I could pretty much buy whatever I want. Yacht,
Tell me about it.
Private jet, new camera. I mean, I'm still shooting on this DSLR, and it's just because of all these Uber Eats I've been getting.
You could be shooting on a Sony right now if you.
Yeah. If I wanted to live that life, that Sony life, but we're not here to talk about Sony versus Canon. I mean, we might later, but we're here to talk about Alexei. So, Alexei, thank you so much for being here, man. It's really exciting to finally have you on the podcast. I kind of mentioned a little bit earlier, but Alexei is one of the reasons why I'm sitting here in this chair right now. One of the reasons why I became a photographer in the first place. One of the people who got me into that. I had always been into art and stuff, but Alexei was one of those people who showed me early on that, I'll be honest, none of us are millionaires, but that you can make a living doing this stuff, and you can make it your lifestyle. So appreciate you being here, man. And maybe one good thing to kind of open things up. Why don't you tell us a little bit about you told us a little bit about your personal background, but maybe your history as a photographer, and what type of photo shoots you like doing the most. Maybe that's a good jumping off point.
Well, first of all, thank you for having me here, and so much praise. Sorry, I'm not really blushing much on camera. I don't have much experience in that. But in terms of generally it all started, 31 years ago. My stepfather got me my first camera for a birthday gift. As a matter of fact, still have it right here.
Still have it. Nice.
Nice little pocket thing, a plastic thing, pocket size pretty much. It's even glass and lens is actually just a nice plastic.
That's cool.
Yeah, these things were
harder to break.
It actually is. That's probably one of the reasons why it survived so long. Needs a bit of TLC, but can still work. So with that thing, I was still a little kid, didn't understand anything, especially when it comes to all the film and development and stuff. So my stepfather and his buddies, who were amateur, like avid photographers, they were taking care of all of that. But one of the things that I really liked is that I can just push the button and stop the time. For a kid growing up back home, that was absolutely unimaginable sort of a power mystical thing. Still don't really understand it to the point, but that has been sort of my on and off hobby for a very, very long time. Fast forwarding nearly 20 years, I met a guy who became my really good friend, and we spoke about photography a little bit. I already had my first digital camera at the time, one of the Sony Bridges, back in the days. And he once took a look at some of my pictures, and he said a very interesting thing. He said, "You have a good eye, but you have no idea what you're doing." And he sent me the first articles about photography, and it just so happened that something that I've just been doing mindlessly for pretty much my entire life, on and off here and there, started shaping up with some sort of, understanding and control. Little by little, it all been, developing until I decided that I want to try taking it more or less seriously, and he sort of took it under his wing, just giving me a little bit of, in-depth ideas rather than just, sending me off to another article. So few years fast forward, I got my first $20 for a photo shoot. That took me, I don't know, almost 3 years of practicing and running all kind of little experiments and failing vast majority of them.
But that was more money back then. That was like $25, inflation.
Well, yes. I mean, it still amounted to almost the same number of cans of beer, so it was all right.
Depends on the brand.
True that. So later on, at one point I realized that I want to pursue it as a long-term thing. Started picking up a little bit of skill, a little bit of practice, a little bit of knowledge here and there, and started doing it as a little bit of side gig. About, was it 6 or 7 years ago? In midsummer, I lost my job at the time. I was working at the private art college in a student services department. And I decided that that's a good sign probably for me to try doing it, completely freelance.
Nice.
I tried that. It took me over 2 years before photography brought me enough to pay my rent with. But
the dream.
It's, when you believe in it, the grind is worth it. And I mean, this is not, my case is not the same as many. Like, if you have a startup capital, you got like 30 grand to just throw into your marketing, education and stuff. And, you can have a foot in the door much easier, faster, and more solid than me, who, just decided that, hey, I'll take this pretty questionable life situation as maybe a blessing in disguise. So I didn't have, 30 grand kicking around collecting dust on my accounts. So, that forced me to take it slow. But fast forward, here I am now doing pretty much nothing but photography and photography-related work for a few years now, and managing to survive in the downtown Toronto. If anything, that's a success story in my books, not to toot my own horn.
Yeah, I would agree with that.
Yep.
Any questions coming to your mind there, Michael?
Oh.
Yeah. I guess one question I had for you, Alex, was, going through your work, for one, it's all really good. Like, I was looking through your portfolio, and obviously you have, a mix of headshots, portraits, couples photography, and events. And so one question I had for you was, and I have a guess, but I'm probably off. But based on what you just said when in describing, kind of some of the aspects of photography that got you into it and being able to freeze time, what is your, favorite of the bunch to kind of get through? And is it event photography?
It's mostly event photography.
Okay.
I worked directly for a city hall a few times. Bell box murals, the ones that paint all those fancy, beautiful murals on bell boxes, if you've seen them all over the city. I worked with them, an awful lot of corporate entities, Infrastructure Ontario. I don't even know if they're part of government or corporate world, but, all those kind of clients, private, birthday parties in the basement of parents' house, don't need to ask me twice. So those are my main thing, and a fair bit of just personal portraiture. So I do some studio and outdoor work with families, just individuals, believe it or not, even some people who are, Instagram personalities, every now and then need a bunch of, quality work to, boost up their online presence, things like that. That's pretty much most of it. I mean, I don't shy away from majority of photography work, but the bread and butter and also things that make it work for me to wake up Monday mornings are those.
That's awesome. Yeah. No, man. I mean, I've shot a little bit of event in the past. I wouldn't call it my primary, but there is something very satisfying I find about it where, it's the candid, on the spot nature of it. You turn, you see that shot, you take it, and you look through your viewfinder. You're like, oh man, I got that candid moment. And I personally find that it is, again, it's not necessarily what I focus around, but it is one of the more, it can be one of the more rewarding, types of photography to capture, I find. Yeah.
True.
Yeah, I want to switch gears for a second, guys, if it's cool. We're talking a little bit about the type of work that you do, Alexei, and that's good stuff. But we want to get some drama on the podcast as well.
Ooh.
So I think probably another good question would be around gear, right? And particularly for your like portraiture, that type of photography. What type of gear are you using right now, and why?
Well, my workhorse is Canon 6D, the first generation. Why? Well, I got it on a good deal. It's a workhorse that gets the job done, and an awful lot of extremely precise tinkering features that other cameras have are not really relevant for my work. When it comes to photojournalistic work, 90% of time, if not more, I have enough light, so I don't need to worry about my camera being able or not being able to land a focus. So I don't need more expensive models like 5D Mark IV. Also, because it's not particularly expensive, especially these days, now that second generation has been out for a while, it means that if, God forbid, anything happens to it, replacing it is much easier than something that's quadruple the cost. Also, if I am to need to buy two bodies of the same type, then, it's much more manageable. I also do have 70D, which I usually use for just a little bit of video work, mainly because of the lightweightness and the flip out screen, which I'm currently recording myself on. And I do have a 5D Mark II, which I jumped on because my buddy was selling it for almost nothing and a high five. And I figured, it's never a bad idea to get one of those. So basically, I use 6D and 5D Mark II as a pair when I shoot events. So I have a double shoulder holster, and I have a harness, and I have one camera on one camera on the other. But otherwise, the original 6D is really getting the job done for me. Lens of choice for most of my work is Canon's 24-105 f4 USM-L. It's a phenomenal lens. Has been through a couple of repairs and
Super
still
quiet. The
it's
autofocus is like
quiet
super quiet.
and
Yeah.
it's getting the job done. Because a lot of my work is very journalistic, I don't need a razor thin depth of field. I need to be able to show the scenery and to not miss focus on what's important. F4 lens gets it done. Back in the old film days, the rule of thumb for a journalist was simple: F8 and be there. So in my case, I'm doing exactly that. I'm stopping it down, and since I do a fair bit of studio work, I almost never almost never need to go below f4. Like if I'm doing, headshots, it's easily f10. So I don't particularly care for super fast lenses. I mean, I do have, 51.4 and 1.8 and, the 70 200, 2.8, it's sitting right there by my side. But the main thing for my studio work, for my any sort of event or journalistic work, and for shooting things like products, because I do a fair bit of studio product photography these days. For those, versatility of going 24 105 is absolutely unbeatable.
Yeah, man.
And
That's
studio lighting and all the jazz.
We'll talk a little bit about lighting, but yeah, I love hearing that. Everything that you just said, I felt like it could have been coming out of my own mouth, Alexei. Like the point about just having that practical gear, the gear that you need, and not anything more expensive or extravagant than that. I actually got the exact same camera that after shooting on Alexei's 6D, I got the 6D Mark II. And pretty funny, right after I got it here at Henry's in downtown, I don't know if you guys know the layout of Toronto very well, but they put the really expensive camera stores in a really bad area of town. No, maybe just because the rent is cheap there, right? Do you remember this, Alexei, when I got my camera?
I do.
Yeah.
Oh, yes,
yeah.
I do.
So I got my camera there, and I was very excited to have it. So just walked out of the camera store, basically, and started opening it up, opening my camera up right there on... on Queen Street East, and Alexei walks by, sees me doing it, and he's just like, "What are you doing, man? Go home and open that camera." Guy busted me. You see, this is why I need some good photography advice. He taught me a lot. So yeah, getting that 6D Mark II. I mean, I do love it. There's times I think about upgrading, getting into like mirrorless cameras. I will do it eventually. There'll be a big to do about it on the podcast when I do, but especially that point as well about like getting the second unit, right? Like when my second shooter was upgrading his camera, and he had like a real old Nikon crop sensor, and I actually recommended the 6D Mark II if he's going to be shooting with me a lot. Then when we go out on our shoots for Ascari, for the restaurant and things like that, we actually have two identical cameras, right? And just the workflow of that becomes pretty easy, right?
Yep.
I wanted to ask you a question on lighting. You had brought that up earlier in your answer, but even just looking through your portfolio, it's something that you can tell you have a really good handle on, and that is something that I find that a lot of growing photographers can be intimidated by. And so when it comes to bringing your own lighting, we can use portraiture as an example, but in general, I'd be curious to know, for one, what do you use as your lighting equipment, and what are some tips you might have for someone who wants to start using, their lighting a bit more?
Okay, that's a fair bit of a question. So I'm gonna try to pack it a little, and if you need any additional side tangents or anything, just let me know that. So in terms of lighting, one of the things that really kind of set up the framework of thinking for me when it comes to lighting is a very simple realization, which a lot of people seem to just gloss over, is that photography is actually not an English word. Photography, painting with light. Well, if you don't have light, you don't have painting. If you don't control your light, it's like dipping a dead squirrel in the paint and throwing it on the canvas. You can't expect a lot.
So if it's not an English word, it's a what word? What language?
I actually don't remember whether it's Greek or Latin, and don't quote me on that. It's been a while since I was out of high school where I actually had to learn some of that
it's
stuff.
either Greek or Latin, folks. You heard it here on the pod.
Could be German. Who knows? Could be German.
Don't quote me, but
we know it's not English.
It's well, yes. I mean, it's kind of became an English word, but the roots photography are
painting with
not
light.
Originally. Yeah, it's painting with light, and apparently originally what it was is that some lazy painters would put a very simplified lens in front of their subjects propped up, and that would cast the inverted image on the wall. They would just put a canvas there and literally just paint over what they just saw there, and created that. That was considered to be a nasty hack back in the art days. But there is a couple of painters, and I don't have names handy right now, but they're totally Googleable, that have been busted over doing that, and the reputation is kind of questionable, but looks like they created photography as we know it. Well, much, much, much earlier than the original process. In which way?
So never underestimate the power of laziness, Alexei.
I call it efficiency.
Right. Efficiency.
So, So basically, with that in mind, if your lighting is not taken care of, then neither is the quality of a product. You might just luck out and just, point the camera, push the button, done, and everything lined up. Well, what if it didn't? So this is where it comes, the point of, taking care of these things and putting an effort. So once I figured out how the camera itself works and, basics of composition, how to work with people, I started looking at what is it like to, control how things look like. Because if you're looking at, a really nice, pretty model and, she's good looking and pretty and everything, and you want to record that. But thing to remember is that human brain analyzes an awful lot of things, and it has a lot of, emotional responses that make us like or dislike things. So even if lighting is not favorable, we still can figure out how your subject would look like if the light were favorable. Well, the thing is, camera doesn't have a brain. So if you don't use your own, you're kind of screwed for options. So in this case, what you do, if you take, if you just blindly push the button and get the picture, well, you can't convey what you felt about the model, her presence, or his presence, whatever it is. And you can't convey your feelings. All you can convey is that the lighting is sideways, and it gives the dark bill nose shadow across the face and adds 12 to 15 years of age to the image. Congratulations. Hashtag sarcasm. So with that in mind, it becomes imperative to, like, when you're trying to raise the upper bar of your work, to start looking at the lighting. So throughout the time, I went through the entirety of the options. First being just look for where the lighting is good, move your subject around. Then go on eBay, blow $12, get yourself one of those tiny pop-up reflectors. It will rip to pieces in 3 weeks. So you go and spend $20 on a bigger and better one. Now all of a sudden you can do something interesting. Then you go and blow $40 on a cheap-ass flash.
These boys are 200 each that I've got on me right now.
Yes.
So get ready,
Yep. Well, I mean, you're eventually progressing farther, and you get into the point where, you're starting to use your own sources of light, and where you're starting to create lighting rather than relying on existing one. Well, you just ventured into the studio work. So to me, it's very imperative. It's one of those things where, if it's worth doing, it's worth doing well in this particular case.
Yeah.
So especially when it comes to, conveying something, just you pushing the button is not going to put a fine print on the bottom of your picture saying, well, the photographer felt this and that, and now you need to, understand these emotions and these feelings and these conveying, aspects of the subject. No, a photograph is like a joke. If you need to explain it, it's not a good joke.
I love that, man. That's sweet. Yeah, and it's awesome to hear you talk about lighting that way, man, and like the amount of research and dedication that you've put into it. Like it's been a while since we've been able to hang out in person again. Obvious reasons. I guess we could hang out with masks on, but that wouldn't be that much fun. But when we did used to hang out and have some photo shooting sessions and stuff like that, I always saw that you were studying your photography, studying your lighting. Have your Renaissance paintings out there, looking at those, all the different techniques and everything like that. I think it segues really well into the main thing that you actually wanted to talk about here. So I think now might be a good time to, now that we're here in the second half of the podcast, something that maybe we should discuss, putting more effort into your art, right? And that's something that you and I talked a little bit before we jumped on the podcast, just something that should be brought to light and maybe discussed a bit. So let's talk about that a bit. So what do you think that in general with some of the art that you're seeing, and we don't have to limit it just to photography, but you're kind of feeling that people aren't putting the effort in and the research in that they could be?
Well, one thing there is that I can't speak for the overall art. There's only so much that I know even about my own industry.
You're the king of art, Alexei. You're the king of art. You can speak for all art. We're giving you
don't
the
make me blush.
Dictator of art today. Till the end of this podcast, you're the dictator of art.
Okay.
Limited
I'll
power.
need to dust off my crown, but okay, I'll take it.
It's actually a ring. You're just gonna get a ring, not a crown, but just as good.
Man, damn it.
I mean, you're the dictator, so if you want a crown,
you can have a crown. That's cool.
So, for me, it more pertains to the realm of people, somewhere in between. Someone like my mother, who doesn't really use her phone camera or even her actual camera to any further degree than, my memory is not too good, so I'm going to travel to Italy and take a few pictures, and maybe I'll look at them later on when, my memory vanishes and I can't remember what it looked like. Oh, that's what it looked like. Awesome. And on the other side of the spectrum, someone like me who literally, the moment when your work isn't up to some sort of arbitrary standard that's always way above your top bar, boom, your client goes to someone else. How you're going to pay your rent is anybody's guess. So somewhere in between, on all those hundreds of thousands of different gradations in between, there sits a certain pretty large bulk of people. And it's not meant to be any sort of, stab at anybody, but more as a means of reflecting upon what can fairly easily be done to improve an awful lot. And that's an effort. One of the things that is pretty standard is that people treat photography as a replication of their own vision. And I'm talking about biological vision. So here I am, 6 foot tall, well, 6'1", but for the ease of conversation, 6 foot tall. I'm seeing something that's in front of me, I don't know, pretty puppy on the street. I want to take a picture. Swing out my cell phone right here. 6 feet off the ground, straight forward, exactly the way my head is positioned, is my camera position, push the button, done. Ta-da. What does it do? Well, it does show me the exactly same thing. It's like a snapshot of the memory itself. Mm-hmm. Does it do the job of showing, what has happened in front of me in case if brick hits my head and I develop memory loss? Well, yeah, it'll do that. Now, what do I want to do? Well, this is where another part of effort is intention. If my intention is just, record something as it happens and have nothing above that, sure. I mean, hell, there's a reason why we have cameras on cell phones, and there is nothing, wrong about using them to any degree. But let's say I'm seeing this puppy, and I really like how small and fluffy that puppy is. Well, the thing is, I'm shooting 6 feet above, puppy is what, 4 inches tall? What the hell? You're going to be able to barely see that. And now it's a microscopic thing on an asphalt with a whole bunch of street view all around it.
Mm-hmm.
And now what? You're going to need to zoom in every time and then do a 20-minute speech about how fluffy the dog was. If it needs an explanation, it's not a good joke. But what do you do in this case? Well, it's, in this particular case, pretty simple. You're above, dog is below. Get down. You can't tell the dog to levitate. If you can, I'll pay ticket prices to see that. But you can, and fairly easily for most people, get down and shoot right below. You know what? All of a sudden, you have physics on your side. You're down much closer. The doggy looks bigger. Of course, you can see all the fluff and everything. And now, because you're not shooting down, but you're shooting along the pavement, you have foreground, background, and a subject. What it means? You have the background blur. Now the dog stands out a little bit more, even on a cell phone picture. Congratulations. It's not a picture, it's a photograph.
Yeah.
Now we're starting to see something more interesting. Now, why it bothers me to any sort of degree? Well, first of all, because I do need to rant about something in my life.
We got to talk about something on this podcast as well. We got to talk about something.
Another reason, almost as important, is that I see an awful lot of people, on the Facebook, of course, of all the places, an awful lot of pictures could have been improved vastly by a very small amount of effort. And a lot of people are putting things out, to show the world, to express something, to just share, what they've experienced. But if you're just, as if having goggles or just pushing the button, there's only so much you can convey. Yeah, you're showing that it was taken 6 feet off the ground, but beyond that, not an awful lot. If you want to put something into it that's a little bit more, to common Joe, it may not be a big deal. To someone who wants to actually, maybe touch a photography industry, maybe start making some side income, maybe, just explore a way of communicating to the rest of the world through photography. Even if you just want to get more likes on your goddamn Facebook feed, you got to make sure that you're doing something about it. Because it's very easy to take a beautiful subject and create a boring picture. But it takes an effort to take a boring subject and create a beautiful picture. And this is where a bit of effort comes in. Now, it's very easy to say, well, not everyone can dance around with a whole bunch of equipment. Well, almost nobody needs to. Mm-hmm. In reality, an awful lot of pictures, can be done with a minimal stuff. For example, I've taken a picture just, for illustrationary purposes once, of a same person sitting on the same spot on the same bench in a little eatery down on beaches in the Queen East. And I've taken a picture from just 2 angles. One, we were inside, and there was a beautiful sunny day. Sun was just floating in from the massive, huge open window. And we were inside just grabbing a snack. And she asked me to take a picture. And I said, I'll need to take it from different angles. She said, no, just do it now. I said, okay, sure. I took her picture and then excused myself. And I just walked around her and took the picture from same distance, 180 degrees over. Showed her the difference. The backlighting creating all the shadows on her face was one story. Me just literally doing as much effort as to follow the light. I walked, 20 steps? 16 seconds of time at most? And just that was enough effort for me to shoot along the light, not against the light. And all of a sudden, she's beautifully lit, and the place behind her is not blown out as a well-lit street, but it's a well-lit, nice coffee shop or something. I don't remember what it was. And that is quite often the amount of effort that is needed. You're taking a look at your subject who is sitting by the window, and the sideways light is rarely flattering. Well, how much effort it is to tell your subject to turn 45 degrees. Boom, all of a sudden you got yourself a nice diagonal 45-degree lighting, turn your head, Vernier one way, Rembrandt another way, done. You photographing a kid, get down on a kid's level and step in a little bit. Or maybe you want to blow that background into oblivion, throw on your long telephoto lens, and you know what? Walk right over. If you need to get into the bushes, well, how much effort is your artwork worth? If your artwork is not worth walking, for a few seconds, I don't know, sell a camera, grab a drum set.
You can always get a new pair of shoes, right?
This is just, even in the everyday things, a little bit of effort can go a long way. It's applicable to an awful lot of things in life. By far, of course, not all of them, but, how much effort it is to, sharpen your knives once a week. Sharpening a knife can take up to 30 seconds unless you're a sushi chef. How much easier it is to cook something when your knife just goes right through. Well, I'm a little crazy about my knives and I sharpen them like every couple of days. So, it's a bit of an effort. Not a lot, but to raise the bottom bar, you don't need a lot of effort. And it's a simple thing. And it's something that's within the reach of everyone. And you know what? If me ranting about this means that all of a sudden on my Facebook feed, all of the questionable quality pictures become less questionable quality pictures, holy hell, I just improved my own life experience. Why not? Now everybody has better looking pictures for themselves. What's not to like?
Yeah,
So,
isn't that a better world, right?
Effort is sexy,
Yeah, man.
It's interesting. Like if an image is worth, if you had the spark, if you're like, if you had the interest to take a photo, you saw something, I think of event photography as a good example of that. You turn, you see a good opportunity. If it's worth taking the photo, then it's worth taking it right?
Yes.
And one thing I find a lot, and lighting is something I've tried to improve myself, on for a little while now. I had a kind of a bit of a lack of familiarity with lighting different scenarios rather than just like a stagnant shot. And one thing that I was finding earlier on in my career is that like when most of the times you'll set something up, you have the model where you want them or the product where you want it, you have this beautiful setup and something looks off, 90% of the time it's the lighting, right? I guess, where I wanted to go, transition this as well and keeping it in the same, realm of, your art and how you express it is, and I'd love to get your takes on this, guys, is I think that there's also this spectrum of like people who are hyper focused on getting the content out versus the people that are like super focused on their creative expression. And I think that there is like an in between, because I find that, when your focus is, on just like getting that work, maybe if it's a client, getting it to them quickly, or if it's, just capturing footage and publishing it online, maybe you're a YouTuber or you're, a photographer and you're publishing on your portfolio or your site or your Instagram. Or the other side of it, something you hear a lot about is, done over perfect. And some people, when you're so obsessed with the creative expression, you find that you're like, it's not done. It's not perfect.
You never put it out. Right?
And then it doesn't get out. Where do you think that that line is when it comes to, creative expression and just getting the thing out?
Okay, I'm gonna try that. So, for me, the line and exact position of it is determined by the artistic or necessarily or corporate, whatever, by the intent. So if your intention is get it done quickly and speed is over quality, and I've done a few projects like that, it is, in this case, you just have to understand where is that line where you're willing to say, I am not dropping this element of my quality, but I'm dropping this element of my quality, then my luck, but it is what it is. In which case, you already know what to sacrifice. In case if it's your artistic intent and there is no pressing, well, take whatever time you need to. If you don't think you'll ever finish it, seriously, publish whatever you have, title it work in progress. You're done. Your social media is under control and everything is going on, but at least something is, wheels are rolling if you need them to. Yeah. But a lot of that is very much about what are you trying to do. And a lot of people, when they're talking about photography, they're just, oh, I'm doing photography. No, photography is a tool to means, or is it means to it? And I'm still lost in English language. But the thing is,
so are photography, we. Don't worry.
Yeah. Photography by itself, it can be something that you just like doing. Just run around, stop time, and you're done with it. In which case, that's it. That's fine. But I work, for example, with this client who is selling wholesales of bongs and smoking and vaping products. Well, when they get a sample of the product in their warehouse, they want local, businesses line up to buy like cases of that product before the end of the day. So even if the picture is not insanely perfect, on their website, on a little box, nobody is going to see all these microscopic things. Maybe there is a speckle of dust on your lens that got caught in. Yeah, it takes very little time these days to edit it out. But if you are on a tight clock, well, this is something that, at least in my current work, I can slide because I know exactly what kind of things are going to be visible and what kind of things are going to be invisible. And, for that, they just need to be fast. They need to be quick. They also have copywriters to produce, the descriptions of everything. And those people start working by the time I made it home. Like their web design people with them are already putting together new pages and, filling out, product names and prices and everything else. And they want it going. In this case, so long as my work is, impressive enough to get people to just order a bunch of those and sell them at their shop, it's good enough, right? Because if you take extra time and, just, take extra time and make it super polished and perfect, by the time you're done, competitors already selling it. Boom, tough. So this is where the line and corporate work. Now, when I'm working on my own things, I want to make sure that it's perfect. So if I have to meet with my subject once again a week later and redo the whole thing from scratch because I realized that there is a mistake that I've made, well, who's pressing me? Nobody except for myself. I want to show the extent of my art, and if I did not reach it, try it again.
So right? when this is done, we're actually going to re-record this whole podcast. I think we could do it better the second time around. Not just
Hey, I can only do so many heart attacks a day, and I've already had my fill.
Yeah. We wouldn't do that to you, and it's been a wonderful episode as well. So there would be no reason to.
Yeah. So basically, when it comes to these things, it's basically understanding pretty in depth what constitutes your work, what kind of elements there are, conceptual, visual, technical, which ones will drop the whole project down and which ones the project can survive without, and understand where to draw your lines and where do you take your losses, where you cut your losses. This is exactly one of those things that makes people say that photography business is 10% photography and 90% business. So, So, and that's part of your effort as well, because you have to understand where to do it. And you know what? Fighting your own self and saying, you know what? I don't think it's perfect, but breathe in, breathe out. Client, doesn't know and client doesn't care. It's okay. I'll polish it to my standard and publish on my Instagram. But now the client is behind my shoulder with a USB stick in hand. And you know what? Never a good idea to piss off someone who is nice to you and also signing your checks.
Right.
It's like this is where it's a tricky balance, and no situation is much like any other. And there's no clear-cut solutions. There's no cookie-cutter approach. You just you just find your own way, and if it's slightly off compared to someone else, well, I mean, we're artists. We're individuals. We're all messed up in our own unique ways. Ride it.
And there's no such thing as perfect, right? You're always going to be compromising in one way or another, compromising to meet like a certain need of the client, right? Something that they want. You're going to have to compromise because of deadlines, and this whole thing around, just putting a little bit of effort in. And even for myself, like, there are shoots that I kind of just need to do a repetitive thing and kind of come up with like a list of shots to get and kind of just like a bit of a procedure for things. But it's also really important for me that I experiment with stuff. In fact, we just had our last guest on the podcast, Corinne, talked about shooting in black and white. So I've been editing some of my photos in black and white, just like another thing that I haven't really focused on, and another place to learn and develop by doing exactly what you're saying, right? Like, don't just take the picture as it is. Think like, okay, what could this be? What meaning could this convey? How could this be, a much more, right? Not just a, Instagram little picture, Instagram story, but a true photo, right? A true work of art. It's not that hard. It doesn't take that much effort to go over the line, right?
Yeah, Jared, it's funny you bring up that Corinne podcast because, tying that to what Alex was just talking to, having tight deadlines. She was talking about, those days shooting festivals, and sometimes
that was nuts to hear that. That was nuts.
That was nuts, man. And you are on like a crazy timeline. You're shooting one band, and she was saying some of these
and they're
bands
on the website in 15 minutes. Yeah,
they want to have these photos up. She's rushing. She's getting them in. So I think one tip to also take away and to speak to what she probably really has to do is make sure you have it as good as possible in camera before, letting that go, I guess, because, with her, I don't think she even has the opportunity to edit.
Well, in my daytime job, being a photojournalist, I'm not legally allowed to edit.
Oh,
wow.
Oh.
You cannot compromise the integrity of story. You cannot add or subtract anything from what's been said or done, neither in text nor in the image. So I have to shoot everything perfect right away, which means that if I arrive anywhere, I have to take a couple of test shots, making sure that everything looks good in camera. And if it means that I have to be able to tweak all of my camera settings and do my test shots on a course of like 20 seconds, well, I better know what I'm doing, or else, guess what? Having editor-in-chief unhappy, not good in my job.
No, I don't think it's good in any job if your boss is pissed off at you, right? It's not.
But you know what? You know what? On a subject of the effort and sort of getting into it. Back when I was back when I was allowed to congregate with people and everything, I was doing a little bit of workshops and like little one-off things and one-on-one and small microscopic private courses. And one of the things that I used to do is a very interesting exercise. I would tell people to pick any object around them. Doesn't matter what it is. Anything that's, tangible and they can walk around. I mean, don't put a handgun because you probably can't walk around with that thing in Toronto. But short of that, just pick something that you can carry around anywhere. Whatever it is. Laws of physics are your limitation. Once people pick that, with that picture, with that object being the main subject of the picture, take me 3 pictures: positive emotion, negative emotion, travel story. And it's pretty easy to shoot, I don't know, a pen, but show me a sad or negative story about a pen, or maybe a positive story about a pen. Show me a travel story about a pen. And not a lot needed for that. It's not about, create me a perfect, no reflection image of the shiny product. Nah, not a technical stuff, but start thinking about how to show things. If you're looking at your subject and you see, I don't know, a brass strap is sticking out, it's not a lot of effort to say, hey, your brass strap is showing out. You may want to, tuck it in. It takes what, 10 seconds to say, 5 seconds to fix. All of a sudden, the image in general looks better. Some people care, some people don't. But it's not a big thing to fix. Realign your lights a little bit. And sorry, I haven't really gotten deeper into your question about what my technological approach to lights, which I might as well just do in a moment.
We'll have to have you back on for another episode, and we'll do another hour on.
Well, you know what? If you're willing to actually, drop by with a mobile camera and stuff, I'll have no problem actually running a studio session. I set my little living room as a studio, so I can show how in a standard downtown apartment it's possible to get some, studio decent work done. And if you've seen my portfolio, a fair bit of my work is done right here in my living room, like few feet over from where I'm sitting right now. And in that case, yeah, I can totally go over the equipment I'm using, why I choose this and that, and what my approach to setting everything up and how you deal with everyday challenges. Not everybody can blow $100 an hour or $200 an hour to rent like Mint room or something, but many people can have access to a garage or a large enough room, which again comes to the matter of effort. Because you know what? I had to pick all of my furniture so that it's easy to move around. That took some research and thinking, planning, measuring, and everything. I made sure that at least one of my couches is actually a pretty looking couch, and I had to go and pick it up by myself. Costed me a few favors to exchange for someone with a truck and everything, so that I can get a couch that can be used as a prop, and it has been used as a prop a number of times. All of these things, living knowing that, I can't just create a massive, reclining lounge in my living room because I use it as a studio. I need to have a fair bit of free space. So dealing with that is another element of effort that I'm willing to put into being able to turn my room on a course of less than 5 minutes into a studio. So it's a very interesting, broad kind of a concept about, just doing a bit more than a bare ass minimum is actually a phenomenal tool. Also because once you stepped it up a little bit, got used to it, now what you're doing is your bare ass minimum, which means you can move on.
Yeah, it's true.
And there is no end to that. The perfection is unattainable, but that shouldn't stop you from striving for it.
Great. That's some wisdom. We'll leave that as the last word of the podcast. Alexei, as always, I really appreciate you being here, man.
Pleasure.
I think Michael and I will definitely at some point be taking you up on that offer. Maybe we'll even come and shoot an episode of Bros right there in the Malakhov studio. I don't know, something like that could be possible.
Cool.
Yeah, other than in your own apartment, where can people find you if they want to check out some more of your work?
I do have a Facebook that I became more or less active on again. Simply, during the pandemic stuff, being mainly an event photographer, I took some time off internet and just focused on, learning my own stuff, studying classics and, understanding the conceptual part of the art over the pandemic. Little bit of photography, a little bit of alcohology.
They go well
So,
together, actually. They work well together.
yeah. And so, but yeah, I became pretty active on Facebook yet again. So anybody can find me on, my personal account or my studio work if they want to see some of my work. I have a website with a contact forum. Those are pretty much the best way to contact me.
Yeah.
I'm generally keeping my phone off, but emails and everything gets right onto it, and I like having a tangible conversation, text and everything.
Nice. We'll link all that stuff. Is it openistudio.ca though, the website?
Yes, it is.
Oh, look at that. Pretty good. So other stuff, I'll start running that outro music probably around here. We'll start bringing in the outro music because we have people to thank. Michael, who do you want to thank?
I want to thank our guest for coming on.
Oh.
Thank you so much for being here, man. Good to meet you. Looking forward to meet you in person. Like Jared said, hopefully we can shoot the next time in person. Want to thank Jared for 25 episodes, my guy. Little cheers for you here. I don't think you have any.
I'll go. I got
water.
one after. I have
right.
some. I'll have a. This could be a vodka though. I don't know.
It's a vodka. Yeah. There you go.
But I've got a beer to celebrate after the show. Mm-hmm.
Beautiful. But yeah, man. Legitimately, it's been 25 episodes, and I'm excited to see, kind of where we go from there. Obviously, we've been able to transition in guests and evolve the show a little bit, and I'm excited to see where we are in 25 more episodes.
Yeah, back at you, man. It's been awesome. Other people who we need to thank as the outro music rolls. We need to thank Megan for editing the podcast. And I don't know, another random person to thank. We will thank Alexei. You do one. Who do you want to thank?
Well, short of myself,
we did that. We both thanked you. I'm pretty sure.
Mm-hmm. Yep. Well, first of all, thank you for having me over. It's
no problem.
Being on a podcast and being interviewed is still a fairly new thing for me. Even
pretty fun, right?
First one. And, thank you for giving me a chance to also reflect back upon the things. And, it's every time you talk about these things, every time you have to go into depth, it's a chance to reevaluate, go over it, and see if it still rings true to, your art, your philosophy, your kind of life setup and everything.
That's why we do it every week, bud.
Yep. And, one of the things that... one of the things that I'd like to give is to my art mentor, who's living 2 hours away from Toronto, so can't really be here with me. But he said a few very interesting things for me that kind of started rolling this whole idea of growth through the put in effort. And probably one of the best things he told me is, if you don't see a mistake in your work, it simply means that you don't have enough theory to understand what a mistake is. And that has been haunting me and propelling me through my entire career, and probably will do forever.
Nice. And his name is?
His name is Alex, just like me.
Alex.
We also look very similar, except for I have all the hair and he doesn't.
Okay, all right. So Alex, no hair. Thank you to Alex without the hair. What he doesn't have in hair, he makes up for in photography skill, right?
Yes, he does. He was teaching me.
Yeah, nice. And other things we need to do before we get out of here. That's everyone we need to thank. That's all the thanks that we need to really give today. But we do need to recommend some content. So if you want to check out some more of Michael Costa's content, skipped a couple of weeks, I gotta say, on the Michael Costa music. But I guess that just means that he's gaining more power in that when he comes out with a new episode of Michael Costa reacts music to music, it'll be one of the best episodes that anyone has ever seen of anything anywhere. Right, Michael?
Exactly. Yeah, 100%.
Yep. Yep. And if you want to check out other great content, if you're listening to this on Spotify, go ahead and click that little, what do you call that? A magnifying glass? Yep.
Magnifying,
Yeah, click on that. And you can magnify your knowledge of all of the great dogs of history. Brought it up as a joke on the last podcast, but my fiance Masha will be covering the Taco Bell dog on Masha and the Dogs. In fact, by the time this is up, don't know why I'm looking at my watch. Like, that's not really going to tell me information. but by the time that's up, this episode will be up, so you can go listen to that right now. But thank you so much for listening to this, and we will see you next week.
Cheers.